Welcome, readers, to another episode of the Bougie Book Pod. I am Tara.
I'm Kira.
And we like to talk about the books we read. Simple as that. And today we are back in the world of Sarah J. You know, I heard her say their name the other day, and I think I've been saying it wrong. I think she says Maas, and I said Moss.
I say Maas.
I was saying Maas, Sarah J. Maas. It's Maas, I'm pretty sure. Because I saw a clip with her the other day, and she was like, "Hi, I'm Sarah J." And I'm pretty sure she said Maas, and I was like, "Oh no, all this time."
Yeah, say everything wrong.
Yeah, anyway, we're back in her world with the last book of the series so far, A Court of Silver Flames. And it is a big one.
Yeah. Which I kind of forgot until I literally just went and grabbed this. Also, before we dive into this, can we just say, you're a little kind of like OCD-ish like me and like particular, were you bothered by the fact that this was the one title that wasn't a court of blank and blank?
Yes.
Because that irks me.
Because every time I went to go make my notes about it, and it didn't have like Acosf something, it really upset me. And
I didn't like it either.
Me. And I kept thinking I was doing something wrong. I'm like, wait, no, it is just Silver Flames.
Literally, even the novella is Frost and Starlight.
Everything is off the...
Anyway, I don't know if anyone else shares that with me. But
that totally bothered me. It bothered me a lot. So A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas is the fifth book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, introducing several new characters who play significant roles. In Silver Flames, Maas continues to build on the world and characters from Acosf, all of which have their own struggles and strengths, making A Court of Silver Flames an exploration of healing, friendship, and self-acceptance. Akin to Acosf, Silver Flames is a character-building roller coaster. I have opinions about that as well. The relationships in the book, though, particularly between Nesta and Cassian, finally, are a central focus with themes of recovery and understanding at the forefront. But in the midst of all that lay more trouble, mystery, and unknown magic for our beloved members of the Night Court. So first, I think we're going to talk about the players in the book. Some of them are familiar faces, names. And then we've got some new peeps.
And some of our familiar ones take a different role. Or at least we see a different side of them through someone else's point of view.
Yeah, we are no longer in Feyre's world.
Yeah. Do you want me to start and then you get to say all the new names? Because I'm going to say guess.
I'll start. Okay. You can do the newbies. Okay, so the story is told through Nesta's point of view, Feyre's oldest sister.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and Nesta has struggled with trauma and feelings of guilt after the war. So throughout the book, she's working on her emotional healing. She's trying to find peace after her inner turmoil. She is being forced to give up the booze. She's very angry. But I think as the book goes on, you really understand that anger and why she's pushing everyone away.
Yeah.
Then we have Cassian. He's a general of the Night Court armies. He helps Nesta with her healing process. Oh, he does.
Yes, in many ways.
He's very crucial in helping her overcome her inner demons. Their romantic relationship becomes a central part of the plot and what fantasies are made of. Azriel, the Shadow Singer, he isn't present as much. We don't ever receive his point of view, but he's like a constant in the background. He's support for Cassian. He's got some other jobs that he's doing during this story. And eventually he's a trainer for some ladies that we meet eventually. Rhysand. Yeah. My once beloved. He's not in the spotlight as much as the previous books, but he is here. And all I will say right now is that his relationship with Nesta is muy complicado. Not a fan of him in this book.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are.
I'm disappointed in him in this book. And then we have Feyre. She's secondary character again, but she supports Nesta's journey and healing. She's very strong-willed. She loves her sisters. She's grown into her role as a leader. And I think she's standing up to Rhysand and his hatred for Nesta, and she's really, really hoping the best for Nesta. We have Elaine. She's more gentle and kind-hearted than Nesta is. She's still struggling to find her place in the world, but I think as this book goes on, you don't get too much of her, but she does start to kind of come into her own and speak up for herself, at least when Nesta is concerned. Eris is back, if you don't remember Eris, one of the Autumn Court
sons.
He's Lucian's brother. At this point, you're wondering, is he friend or foe? We have a lot of interactions with him, with the Night Court, and they're kind of taking a gamble on him, trusting him with some information and his loyalties. There's definitely more to his story, and I really, really hope the next book dives into that.
Oh, yeah.
And then we've got our newbies.
Whew, so let's see how I say this. I say Clotho, but
I was saying Clotho, but I'm pretty sure that's my New York accent, and I'm gonna go with Clotho.
I don't know.
Clotho is probably better.
So she's our priestess who runs the library that's under the House of Wind. That's kind of like a safe haven for these priestesses, and she can't speak because she's missing a tongue from her very traumatic experience. Her tongue, the one tongue she has. But she is a little sassy. You get her, and she does have a soft spot for Nesta because Nesta is very into books and finds herself helping and stuff like that. But and then we have Gwen. We're gonna go Gwen.
Maybe we just call her G.
And she is another priestess in the library. She befriends Nesta because that's another interesting thing is Nesta, her book involvement.
Yeah,
this is interesting. She reads a lot and very dirty things.
I know, which is interesting because this book gets very dirty. We'll talk about it later.
And we learn kind of her past, and Nesta finally gets Gwen to kind of spend some time like training to help go through that traumatic background and just, be more prepared as a woman. Like everyone wants to know self-defense and things like that. But Gwen's independent, she's strong, she's resilient, and they form this bond of camaraderie, and then that leads to Emery, who Emery is not a priestess, but she is an Illyrian who lives in the Illyrian camp that Nesta meets, and she runs a store, but she also has her own traumas because being a female Illyrian, the men are threatened by them, and so when she was younger, they like clipped her wings or damaged her wings in a way.
Her dad cut them off in such a way where there's absolutely no way to heal or repair.
So she can't fly, and Nesta's able to get her to do the same thing. Like, okay, hey, you have a traumatic background too. Let's train together. Let's bond. So the three of them really make this really, really tight connection.
Yeah.
So those are our new faces.
Important faces.
Yes, they're very important to the story. So, I mean, let's see. We get right into it with, we're in Nesta's point of view. She's drinking herself away. Yeah. She's got males, not men, males.
Yeah,
males.
I think it's funny that's how they call them.
Males over all the time. And I love that Cassian is the one that's sent to go get her. And they're like, hey, we're going to give you an ultimatum to get your life together or you're cut off. And so that's where everything starts. That's the catalyst for this whole book. And it's just, she goes through her own type of trauma, but Nesta just pushes and pushes and pushes and wants no help.
Yeah, and they've given her a long time. It's over a year.
Oh, yes. It's over a long time
now since the winter almost a year since the winter solstice in that last book. And everyone is just done. And I think the breaking point was she had a bill that was like astronomical.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, we are not doing this anymore. She's a member of the court and it just looks bad. Also, it's just like, how many times can we try to help you? And you just need to get your shit together.
And obviously they're going to send Cassian because in the other books you have Cassian pushes her a little bit more on things. He will kind of say things to her and they have the interest, towards the end of Act of War. He's like, I'd find you another lifetime, blah, blah, blah. So they're like, okay, perfect. You're going to be the one that trains her. You can deal with her. Imagine Azriel having to deal with her.
No.
It'd be so interesting.
I think it might have still worked
in a different
way because she does respect him.
Yes, but he's just so much more he's quieter, things like that. But so basically she is off to the House of Wind with Cassian. Azriel's kind of like half chaperone, half not, because he's not there half the time. Yeah. And so then this is when Nesta dives into the books, because that's one thing with House of Wind. If you have a good relationship and you respect the house, it gives you what you need and what you ask for. And she's like, oh, perfect. That was a great book. Give me another book about sex and then another one and another one. And then eventually she makes her way to the library, which is where she meets Gwen and
Well,
Clotho.
she's assigned. She has to work.
Yes,
she has to work at the library. They give her like this ultimatum. She has to go there and train.
Yes.
And then after her training day, she has to work at the library. And it's like, you have to have a purpose.
Which, like, thankfully, she appreciates the library a little bit more. Like, something they gave her, something that's not like completely off the walls for her.
No, she's just like sorting and stacking books. But I think she doesn't mind it because she doesn't really want to do the training. It's also time to be alone. She doesn't have to think about things. And I think the fact that this library is made up of all these women who've had something awful happen to them, she's not really there to mess with them.
Yeah.
Because she too has gone through things.
Yeah. So now you're going to have to correct me on my plot line here. At what point Cassian takes her up to the Illyrian camp?
It's very in the beginning.
It is. Okay, that's what I thought.
Once they first start training that first week, he takes her directly to the camp. Of course, those are soldiers, and I forget the guy, his name.
My God, the one that sucks.
Yeah, the feeling his name starts with a D. I can't remember, but he, they're all making these disparaging comments about her being a witch, or like no one's going to train with her and no one wants to be around her. And, Cassian, thinking this would almost push her, but instead she goes more inside than ever. And he's like, he puts her in this training ring and she just sits down on a rock, and it makes him look pretty bad. He's embarrassed that like he can't get this female in line. And she does that for a week. And I think at some point, she makes a comment to him and she's like, I don't want to be there. I will not train at the Illyrian camps. And it just clicks for Cassian. He's like, of course, she doesn't want anyone seeing her. Yeah. She's proud. She's not going to be good at this. And so it's after that week that they change their training. And I think they just do it outside the House of Wind. But yeah.
And I really think one of the interesting things is while this is all happening, if you remember way back, obviously the House of Wind, they all fly to it. But it has the 10,000 steps down.
And it's circles.
And I don't know about you, but so Nesta like starts to go down the steps because that's the only way she can go drink. Is if she gets herself down there. She starts to go down and she doesn't make it very far because she's weak, all this stuff. And then it's like, it becomes one of those things like night after night, day after day, she continues to see how far she can get. And I don't know about you, but every time she's doing that, this scene from Mulan where she's putting in the extra work.
Yes. Hearing that montage.
I'm literally hearing the song like
go Nesta.
When she's like Mulan's out there like working in the morning. Yes. And it was just like, okay, I'm seeing this side by side.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I was like, should I be writing down notes about their training? And he was giving her like nutrition advice about the lactate in her muscles and how to like not be sore. And part of me was like, I think I did highlight some of it. I'm like, I'm gonna try Nesta's training program.
So that's the interesting thing with Nesta is like everyone's like, oh, like Cassian pushed her to train and whatnot, but she had it in her. Like her steps were like that was her her own way of like overcoming this and all that stuff.
When she was unable to make it like 30 steps down, whatever, she had this immediate like, oh no, I never want to be this weak.
Yeah.
And so that's why she begrudgingly started doing the training and didn't really want him to know how much she wanted it, but she did put her whole heart into it.
And the other thing, it's not all physical too, because they still have not seen the depth of Nesta's power.
Yeah.
And they like know, like they keep referring to her as like death itself, or like someone says something that like she is death itself and what she's taken from the cauldron. So we're getting to a point where we're gonna test this out and see what happens. But anywho, and then man, I don't know, do we want to touch on old Feyre darling right now and what happens? Do you want to get into those feelings right now, or do you want to wait?
I mean, let's do it. Let's just jump in. So,
because I have feelings.
I have feelings too. I'm curious if we have similar feelings. I will say, and this is a little farther out though, but there were mentions of her paintings in this one, and she gave some as gifts. And I couldn't stop laughing because I was imagining what you were saying.
The stick figures.
And I was imagining someone get it and going, I love it.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why. I just...
You ruined that for me.
Sorry.
Because I had been thinking, oh, wow, she's just this wonderful artist. Okay, anyway.
No.
Nesta is horrible.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to just put that out there. She's a horrible person at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes out of her way to say mean and horrible things to people.
Yeah.
She knows exactly what to say to hurt someone to their core. And she does talk about their mom a little bit, which I hate her mom. The mom loved Nesta and treated her like a princess and kind of just always gave her this job that you need to be a lady, you need to, what's the word I'm looking for? But like, be the one in the family who's going to rise from their station and get a good catch.
Yeah.
And she really didn't seem to care about Feyre or Elaine. And so when the mom died, Nesta kind of lost that. But then there's so much more going on with Nesta. But I think you learn that she does that because she doesn't think she's good enough to have people care about her because she knows how bad she's been. Even though now she's at a point where she regrets it. She thinks it's been so horrible that there's no way you could accept me now. She feels bad that she let her baby sister take care of them. She feels bad about a lot of things. However, when she is pushed, that's what she goes straight to. So even when you see her starting to make strides, the moment something goes a little awry in her world, and the moment she feels a bit attacked and put down, she really brings out the big gun. She's like a snake.
Yeah.
And this is farther on down the line, but I mean, do we wait?
No, I think this is like a discussion because like we're gonna change, and we'll talk about like
all over
the trove and all that stuff. I just think it's important. Yeah, we are a little bit. This book is all over the place, but Feyre ends up. Feyre becomes pregnant.
Yeah.
And of course,
faster than anybody expected.
Little shape shifting, got her all of her skills. Oh, they had sex while she had her Illyrian wings out. And no one had to tell Feyre that, like, oof, women that are Illyrian are built different to birth those wings out. And you are not. And you're going to die.
They don't tell Feyre.
But they don't tell Feyre that.
They just tell her, oh, this is going to be a little complicated.
Yep, and Rhysand the whole time knows this and doesn't tell Feyre, which is just insane.
Yeah.
And so at one point, yes, Nesta throws it at Feyre, which is just...
Because there was, I forget exactly what happened, but something goes on where there's something about Nesta that they didn't want to tell her about. Cassian wanted to tell her. And they were like, well, we'll have to put it to a vote. And the people who voted against it were Amren and I think Rhysand. And when she found that out, she was pissed. And so she went straight to Amren to like tell her off. Basically, you also learn in the beginning of the book that Nesta and Amren, they have their relationship.
They went from being very close to nothing.
And Nesta is really, really hurt by this. So instead of just saying that she's hurt by this, she like goes for the jugular. And while Feyre comes to try to help this fight that they're having, Nesta is thinking in the moment, well, you know what? They're keeping things from you too. And she tells her, and it is, it's bad. But I'm not going to lie. Was it the wrong way to do it? Yes. But I just feel like if that was my sister, I wouldn't like that people were lying to her either.
Yeah.
And I didn't like how immediately everybody hated Nesta for this.
Yeah.
I get
I'm sorry.
It's not the right way.
It goes back, like, for me, it goes back to Rhysand.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have that conversation with her. And even though you're scared for her life and you and Feyre did this stupid ass thing and linked your lives together and like that whole bit, but like, you have to have that conversation. I don't know. It was, you felt for Feyre because she's just like, la da 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 da.
She's so happy. Every time they describe her, she's holding her belly and she's like glowing with life, they would say. And meanwhile, she has no idea that everybody's miserable around her because they're trying to figure out a way to cure this, but there is no way to cure it. And so I think they were wrong for keeping it from her. I think Nesta was right to tell her, but not in that way. And I was actually really angry with everyone being mad at her.
Yeah.
So that's, you know what? Another hot take. This was my favorite of all the books.
No, I can see that. I think this and Mist of Fury for me are like...
Yeah, Mist of Fury was my favorite, but this one really,
This had more depth.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes. Yeah. Where Mist of Fury was fun because you were finally getting what you wanted.
Yes.
But this was like, oh my, there's a lot of heart in it.
Yeah.
And I really love, like, at the base of it, this working out trauma and depression, self-destructive behaviors, and then like this female independence and like banding together. It was really, really great. So even though I was so angry with Nesta in many parts, I really was rooting for her the whole time.
Oh yeah.
Which is interesting. Like, how can you be such a hated character, but like people really are rooting for you? Like, I really want her to like just get it, just girl, just get it.
And but that's the thing. It's not just, if this were just all about like that deep dive, it'd be terrible. But they have really interesting plot.
Yeah,
like the plot is so different in this, and so do you want to just kind of go through some of the plot? So obviously they have this training. They start training. She finally comes around to it. So she's got Gwen, and she gets Emery to train with them, or Gwen, whatever. And so they do that. Asriel joins them quite a bit in training sessions. And then that's when they also realize, like, you know, there's this other side to Nesta that we have to explore because we don't know what she's capable of.
Yeah.
And this is where there were some parts where I was like, what's happening?
Yeah.
So you compared this. So Nesta is linked to the cauldron. She takes from the cauldron, and unbeknownst to everyone, there are these objects called the deadly trove objects, right?
The dread trove.
Dread trove. I keep reading it as deadly too.
Yeah, but it was dread. The
dread trove. The mask, the harp, and the crown. And I love that you compared this to the deadly.
I mean, it was the first thing I thought of, because one of them was like, you know, bringing back the dead, and like, hello, the resurrection stone. I mean, in different ways, but it was 3 objects, and it's got this name like Dread Trove, Deathly Hallows. It just was making me think of that.
Yeah.
And basically what they were finding out is that human queen who was thrown into the cauldron and made Fae, but as a super old lady, she got word of this Dread Trove and was on a mission to find these objects, because just like the Deathly Hallows, if you have all 3, you are like the master of everything. And they learned through Asriel's spying, and even Eris was helping, because he was saying that his father was secretly aligning with her. And the name Brialyn, I don't know. We can call her Bri. She had the crown. And wearing the crown meant that you could get anyone to do your will. And this again was reminding me of the Imperius curse from Harry Potter. It was just like, basically their eyes would get glassy, and they're just not acting of their own volition. They're acting through what she wants them to do. So this is a very dangerous thing.
And very similar, it came to like a time like who can get to these first.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so it was reminding me of that a lot.
And then they're like, oh, perfect, Nesta can.
Yes, because they kept saying like calls to like. So because she was made from the cauldron, and these items were also made or of the cauldron, they knew she would have a direct link if she accessed this.
And I think it's so fitting that these objects are like so powerful, a little more dark. Like it's not like they're like, oh, Feyre, we made you, or like, oh, Elaine, you and your flowers, go like. Heck no, these are not made for Elaine. This is made for Nesta.
This is made for Nesta. And but her problem is they're calling it like scrying, when you kind of look for things, whatever. And she's very resistant to it because the last time she did, when she was trying to find the cauldron, it saw her. It knew their location, and that's how Elaine was taken. So she is super resistant. She's like, no way in hell am I doing that. And, the night court people, they're like, well, you have to.
Mhm.
And she's saying no. But eventually she does get to this point where she realizes if I'm going to be any use and I'm going to actually help, I'm going to have to do this. Yeah.
And so then, and you have the question of like, is this, just plot device and things like this. I do kind of like this journey of these three things. It takes us to some interesting places. And for some reason, it's the mask scene for me is, and I know social media agrees, is such an interesting scene because she is with Asriel and Cassian at this point. It's all three of them, right? Yes.
So she tries to scry once and something terribly goes wrong.
Yeah.
But then she says, the next time I'm ready to do it, I want everybody to be present and like be there for me.
Yeah.
And so she does it again, and then they find where the location of the mask is, and it's in the bog.
I say the bog.
And basically they take her to this place where I was imagining like everything was just like black. The water is black, everything is dead, like dead trees.
Yes.
And they basically, Asriel and Cassian are explaining to her, like, this is like the land of the nothing. Like the bad things go here to die or to just live out their existence. And like nothing good comes from this place. And they were suspicious that the mask may be in this river or lake, whatever. But what ends up happening is they find or come across soldiers from the Autumn Court. And who are attacking them with ash arrows and everything. And so Cassian drops Nesta off at a tree or something, and him and Asriel go fight. And Nesta's standing there, like hanging onto a tree for as long as she can. And finally, she's just like, I gotta get down. Like she's thinking, I need to get to Cass, which I thought was really sweet. But they're fighting, and so she comes across some trouble. But wait, this thing comes out of the river.
I picture it like this, like gross water that hasn't moved, like this pond swamp,
like thick, like thick oil almost. That's how I was picturing it.
Yes, and I can't remember what this thing's called. And
neither can I. But it's like a skeleton. Like I imagine, like
it's described
like
horribly.
The skin that's like kind of falling off, where it's like all slimy. Yeah, this thing is coming out of the water to get her, and it's talking another language, but she understands what it's saying. And she fights like hell, but it drags her into the water, and
then it like wants to make out with her, which I didn't like.
It was so disgusting.
I don't know if it's like sucking its life or Nesta's. I can't remember what it was, but it was describing its tongue, and I was like,
like his tongue was in her mouth, and saying comments about like, you're gonna be my bride for a while. I'm gonna play with you for a little bit before he kills her. And she's thinking like, I've got it, like, help me, this magic that I have, I never call upon it, but like, help me. And like falls to the lake, and she puts her hand down,
and there it is.
And there's the mask. So
which, in my eyes, it looks like this. Yeah. The, whatever you call the like half.
Yeah, I imagine that's what it was.
I don't know what that's
called. That was what the cover, like the masquerade type thing. And so she puts it on, and infinite power.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, it's just like, there's so many. And I can't even think of what stories I'm thinking of. They're just, I feel like so many fantasy books where all of a sudden you have an army of the dead.
Again, Harry Potter.
Yes.
That scene where they all come out of the water. That's what I was thinking.
And it's exactly what she gets.
She has power over them.
Yes. And she leads this army of the dead for, it felt like a very long scene, but I don't really think it is a long scene at all. And it's very interesting because you don't really know. You think like, oh, like Nesta like knows what she's doing, whatever. And then Asriel shows up, and she's like staring at him. He's like, Nesta, are you in there?
Yeah, they were saying like behind the mask, her eyes were not her eyes.
Like you got the idea of
this is what I love too, because at that part they mentioned that Illyrians, when they see death, they bow, and they bowed to her because they were like, that's not her, that's death itself. And so they bow to her, and then I think it's Cassian starts speaking to her, and that's when like she's able to take it off. And
it's insinuated that like if she wears that too long, she's not coming back.
Yeah. And then later on, when she does retell the story, Amren is like, no one is able to take that off.
Yeah.
We like, what are you? Which I thought was pretty wild.
Of course Amren would know that. Yeah. Whatever.
Amren pissed me off in this book.
Yeah.
I know she was pushing her, Which is funny because at some point in the beginning when Cassian was having a hard time getting through, Amryn was the one who kept saying, keep reaching out your hand. And I'm like, meanwhile, you've been the biggest bitch to her, but I get it because she's disappointed.
Yes.
But, yeah.
So yeah, they have that whole expedition. Is there anything else on the Dread Trove you want to touch on?
Well, she does eventually find the harp.
Yes.
That is a crazy scene. I forget how. I think she's just. Oh, she starts going to the priestess's like services or whatever because she loves music, and Gwen keeps telling her that they have the most beautiful music. And so all this time she's been trying to do this mind training too of like kind of calming her the voices in her head and the angers and the things that she has. And she gets to a point while she's at this service where she is just so calm. And that's when she has this vision and she knows exactly where the harp is, which is in the prison, which they never expected. And so they do her and Cassian go to the prison to see if they can find this harp. And it is wild. They go, and I forget this monster's name. I think it's Lanthus or something.
Something like that.
And it's what I do like is in this book, before we get to those scenes, Sarah J. Maas, she peppers in these certain characters, like that thing that came out of the water, because Cassian is telling her these different stories of his expeditions and stuff.
And so, he put most of these people thingies in the prison.
Yeah. And so then when they do come up, it's like, oh, that's cool. She was just talking about it. So now I know what's happening. They don't have to give this whole explanation at that point. But she finds the harp, like calls to like. But the problem is when she like plucks one of the strings or says like open for me, it opens all the wards in the prison, and that's how this monster comes out. Which
I don't know about you, but it was such an interesting description of this monster because it's not like the skin's falling off. It's like I'm picturing like a fog and like a mist. And it's like that would just drive you insane to begin with.
Because you don't really know where it's coming from. But
it was a very interesting one.
Yeah, but then at some point it shows her a form of like this really gorgeous prince type dude. And Cassian is able to, what's the word? Like, what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
That's really awful of you.
I know, sorry.
Distract it so that
we go.
So that Nesta can run. But then again, Nesta has this moment of like, he's going to die. Yeah. And so she plays the harp to like move time or move space or whatever.
Yes, it's a very interesting concept.
Yeah, and she goes back to fight with them. And without like going all into the details of this fight, this thing sees what she is or what she is capable of. And I think it's at this moment you're like, wow, I think she is the master of all of these things. It is pretty wild. So they do come out of that. But it's just like, she's still resisting Cassian in terms of like a love. Yeah. And it's just like, how many times are you going to try and save his life or vice versa, or feel like you're going to die if he dies before you accept that you love him?
So I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but just because you're talking about the music and Cassian and whatnot, can we go to is it in the Court of Nightmares?
Yes.
The ball. Can we go to that scene?
Yeah.
Because when you were talking about the music, I was like, oh my God. So I love this. We learned Nesta was like, I'm picturing a professional ballroom dancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, what this person who is death herself, like in the human world, was trained and like could make men swoon over her from dancing. And so they're like, oh my God, perfect. Guess who also loves that?
Yeah.
Eris.
Yeah.
And we need you, and honestly, out of all the things they've asked her to do, this is I think she's like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, whatever, that's easy. To swoon him with a dance. And oh my God.
Yeah.
Which I feel for Cassian because, so they describe this beautiful, elegant, fast-paced dance.
Yeah.
in which they are just like Eris and Nesta in my head were just like one person in this.
Yeah.
Strange connection. Like they just flowed so well. And like he was literally ready to marry her.
Yes. I was shocked by that.
Like one dance and was like, Reese and I want her.
He's like, if you want my loyalty, I want her as my bride.
Yes. And I was like,
and what bothered me is Reese was like, I'll think about it. I'm like, what? You'll think about it? That is a no. And even Farrah was like, what?
Yeah.
We're gonna entertain this idea?
And all I picture, and I don't know about you, but so Cassian stops in.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting. They just did this beautiful thing. And Cassian's this brute and like doesn't know how to dance. And he steps in because he's like, what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna lose her to him?
Yeah.
And I just picture this big man. Honestly, not like my husband's like big like a brute. He can't dance. He's very stiff, like things don't move, you know, more muscle than like wiggle. And that's what I picture. Like Nesta goes to this beautiful dance to Cassian, who's like the like and I was just like, oh my god. But I really felt like we talked about there's more to Eris.
Yeah.
And that scene also led me to believe that there's more to him that we don't know about.
Well, because there's also a scene before that dance where he is talking to Nesta because Cassian takes her along when they're meeting him in secret. And he makes he says something along the lines of there's more to the story of the Morrigan.
The more, yeah.
And he calls her the Morrigan, not more. And that struck Cassian as odd.
Yeah.
But he's basically like, you should ask her, but there's more to that story.
Yes.
And it's making me think, oh, wait a second. Maybe he left her knowing that somebody was going to find her.
Yeah.
And he left her because he knew that she didn't want to do this anyway.
And I do hope we learn more about that in the next book, because that big hint too, I was kind of like, okay, is more shady? Is there something like, I've been pissed for you.
Yeah.
But should I not have been as pissed? Like, what actually happened? And
or maybe it's not even that like she's telling the wrong story or being shady. Maybe he is just letting her believe a certain thing. Meanwhile, he set it up so that she would be found. I don't know. I think there's more to it. And I think he's not the bad guy that he wants everybody to believe he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he does ask for her hand. And they're like, yeah, well, we'll consider it. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it should have been a flat out no.
Yeah.
But they are so unsure of his loyalty. And it means more to have that loyalty than I guess anything else, because they think another war is coming.
Yeah.
And things are already pretty fragile with everybody.
So then with the love interest, Cassian and Nesta, it was like a slow burn and then it like blew up into flames.
Oh yeah.
And I
found myself reading this at night before bed. And actually, there were parts where I was reading in school when my kids were testing, and I was like,
yeah, you're like,
I'm allowed to read.
Okay, I need to go touch some grass.
Exactly. I'm like, this, it was, I mean, there are sex scenes in Mist and Fury and in the little Winter Solstice story. But this is another level. It was reminding me of when I read the Mr. Grey.
50 Shades of Grey.
50 Shades of Grey. I mean, not in terms of like the violence and stuff, but the fact that it was just like so intense and so descriptive. She went like buck wild with this. But I think, you know, at first I was like, oh my, clutching my pearls. But it really matches her character. Yeah. Because she's brutal. Yeah. She's physical.
And Cassian is too. He's the brute. He's like this big physical guy.
They're hungry.
Yeah, and it's been building over the last few books, honestly. So like the fact that it does just explode into flames is like, you're not surprised, but also some of the descriptions, you're like, all right, time to like get my face in the sunshine. Yeah. Like I need to.
My.
Yeah.
But then you know they're doing this, and she keeps saying to him, "It's just sex." And he's always like, okay. And she's
Yeah.
like, but that's all it can be. Like,
Yeah.
I'm crazy and I messed up. And so it's funny because there are moments where, you know, he'll leave right after and she's like, I kind of wish that he would stay. I'm like, yeah, but you're telling him it's just this. So he's respecting that.
And my favorite like thing about all of this is Azriel's still there at points.
Yeah, I know.
He's still the only other member in the House of Wind. And there's like this scene where they're like eating breakfast or something.
Yes. And then like she's about to like go down on him or something. Or no, she does go down on him, and then they're like, "We'll just do it right here on the table."
Yeah.
And you hear, and he's coming in for breakfast, and they're just like, huh.
And also like the Fae sense of smell. Like Ezra's sitting there, and he's like, he can smell everything on them, and he's just like, "Am I safe to eat here? Like, is this spot safe? Is this spot safe?" And he's just kind of like, hey guys, like he's the worst chaperone.
I know. I felt bad for him. I would have been like at this point, and then like I have to imagine they're making a lot of noise.
Yeah, from the descriptions of it, and like the House of Wind is big, but like
they're talking about like howling and screaming, and I was like, my goodness, I'm telling you, this book it's steamy. It's very steamy.
Poor Azriel.
I don't think. I mean, it's very explicit, but I don't think it overshadows anything. No. I don't think it was like over the top. I mean, some parts were, but I don't think it was over the top in a point where I'm like, oh my God, just move on already.
Yeah.
Because they're definitely going through things and they're getting it out in this way.
And I think the fact that it wasn't like they just expressed their love for each other. Yeah. See, that's I don't know. There's something about certain sexual scenes need to have a purpose for me. Mm-hmm. And when characters are like, oh my God, we're mutually in love, we love each other, but then you still continue on their sex like scenes, I'm like, I don't really need this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But for them, it was a release, and they're like, oh, we're just friends, and then they're navigating that whole or just using each other.
Jealous here, one's jealous
so
there.
like there was purpose to it. I felt like
for sure.
It wasn't like a book with sex scenes and like they tried to add some plot into it. It felt like it had a purpose. There were times where you were like, whoa, but like it had a purpose. So that's a lot. But she got a little, that's where you see her get like soft and mushy and like
because I think each time she is with him in that capacity, she's probably learning more about herself and her feelings towards him and how good it makes her feel and how she can't stop thinking about him, but not even just in that way. Like she feels very protective of him. She feels bad about every mean thing she's ever said to him. She hates when she hears somebody else call him a brute or insinuate that he's not smart. She always wants to stand up for him. So I think like it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. But her character arc is really more focused on herself, which I actually really like, because unlike Feyre, who was ready to like burn the world down and give up everything she ever liked for a guy she just met, Nesta, even though she knows this connection is strong, she knows how important it is for her to fix herself because she doesn't feel worthy of him.
Yeah.
And so she's like, it can just be fun because I can't do more than that until I don't even think I can fix myself. But like I like that that's her goal and that's her focus. It's not riding off into the sunset with someone. It's I need to figure this out or I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And then you learn kind of that Cassian has his own insecurities and struggles too. Like he doesn't enjoy being the brute, or the fact that like when they have these meetings, especially with Eris, that he's not always doesn't always know exactly what to say or how to combat an argument with just words. So you learn a little bit here and there about the both of them.
Yes.
But what I really love, and I think we didn't really we mentioned like the new girls.
But I was just thinking about going back to them.
And what I really loved about this book was Nesta found her power in trying to give them power. Because she's doing this training. She's starting to realize the importance of it and the strength and the help that it was giving her. And that's when she just starts putting up this sign up, like, you guys should do it too. And the priestesses, they're like, no, like we could never. But she's just trying to tell them everything that you've been through. just staying here and
Yeah.
hiding, it's not going to help you feel better. You need to take back your power. And she does things along the way to show them, like, look what I'm doing it. And if I can do it, you can do it. And I really, really love that. And so it starts with just Gwen signing up, and then she gets Emery from the Illyrian camp. But then slowly but surely, these other priestesses start coming, and it's hard for them because they don't like men, because they have been tortured by them. And Cass and Azriel, like, they are really wonderful with these women, really like respectful. They like tell them, I'm going to show you this. And they see them do that with Nesta, and then they have that confidence, like, okay, we're safe here. They're not going to hurt us.
Yeah.
And I just think it's really, really beautiful that she gets all of these women who have been so scared and so tortured to take their power back.
Yeah, which I was going to say, do you want to lead into like the Valkyrie thing?
Yeah.
So we learn about the Valkyrie. That's how I say it.
Yeah, me too.
And they are a group, I guess you'd call them.
Kind of like the Illyrians.
Yeah. Very similar to the Illyrians. They were extremely powerful in a way of just like mental. They were so mentally strong. Physically strong, just warriors, but they were women. And so Nesta starts learning about, and I think she gets some like breathing techniques from them. She starts reading, doing all this other stuff, and they're like channeling the Valkyrie, and they're like kind of trying to do similar things to them, and they form this, you know, their own little allegiance to the Valkyrie and things like that.
Because the legend goes that they were all killed in a pretty big battle, and so Gwen's like mentor lady, I forget her name, it starts with an M, Meryl or something like that. She's doing the history of the Valkyrie, and so Gwen is learning all of this, and she's like, there's a lot that we can learn from these women, and we can do them right, and we can show these Illyrian like bastards that girls can do it too, which I really love.
Which sucks though, because, and like, honestly, I know there are so many things that go on, like there are multiple plot lines here in this story, but one of the biggest ones for me at the ending and the with the story was, and I cannot remember what it's called, the blood rite. There's an Illyrian tradition called the blood rite, and it's a certain point after the Illyrians have been training, and they basically are like kidnapped. They're dropped off into the wilderness away from, you know, their allies. Like it's like
Hunger Games.
It literally is. It's like every man for himself, and you want to survive a week.
Yeah, it's a week.
And then there's also this fact of like, one, you need to survive, and two, there's a mountain, and
you gotta climb the mountain.
You have to climb the mountain and like reach the peak.
Oh, and they take all their magic away from them.
Yeah, so you have no magic. It's just brute strength and what you can remember. But like, if you survive the week, you're fine. If you get to the mountain, you're like another level of like legendary. And of course, the year that Rhysand, Cassian, and Azriel go through the blood rite, they're separated naturally because they're so close. And the three of them survive the week, but of course, because of who they are, they make it to the top. So they are just like legendary status.
Yeah.
And these Illyrian men are not happy with this training that's happening, with them thinking like, oh, you know, we're women, blah, blah, blah. And so what happens, but the blood rite comes around and they take them and they throw them into the blood rite. And Cassian and Azriel and Rhys cannot do anything about it.
Yeah, because the rule or the law is that if anybody goes to interfere, you will be put to death.
And they're separated, of course. The girls are separated. And so it's just this, I mean, like, you've got to know you're going into it and you're like, okay, they've got to make it, like, right? Like, they're going to make it. And it's just, and of course they find each other, but they're in bad shape by they find each other.
But it's really cute the way they find each other, because before they're kidnapped, Nesta had gone to Emery's place because she was upset because Cassian tells her, like, what the hell? Like, we're mates. Like, when are you going to accept it? And she's like, I can't, not right now. And so she goes to her girlfriends, which just seems so human of her. Like, I need a night with my girls to talk about it. And I really like this scene. And they end up making, like, friendship bracelets. But these friendship bracelets, they say like, if you put a wish on it or something. And so Nesta puts a wish on it. And basically like, maybe we'll always be able to find our way to each other. And because of that, it's like she's got like this little compass to them.
Yeah.
And it'll light up like what direction she should go into to find them, which I thought was really cool.
And I can't remember. Oh my God, I've got a hip cramp. Can't do that. I was like, whoa. I can't remember, but I want to say, is it Emery that's actually in the worst shape at this point? Like, there's one that's like almost unconscious.
It's Emery.
Is it Emery?
Yeah, because she falls from like a hill or like a ledge or whatever. It's the only way she can get away from these guys is she falls and she hits her head on the rocks.
And they're just, getting attacked left and right. Yeah. And she is in bad shape. And I don't know if they describe her this way or if I just picture Emery is like tall. Like Emery for me is like the biggest one out of the three. And then like she is just out for the count pretty much. And
I mean, and Nesta at one point, to get her out of the water, and it's freezing because it's almost winter solstice. No, winter solstice just happened.
Yeah,
because it's been a year, and she takes off all her clothes. She's naked in the water, in the freezing water. I was like trying to like picture like how uncomfortable.
Yeah,
she's like getting her friend out and like putting the clothes that she stole from somebody else on her. I mean, she was such a warrior. But I think the most cool is when they find Gwen and she's like in the fucking trees. She's got like a bow and arrow.
Gwen to me
figured her way out.
Gwen to me is like a more elevated version of Rue from the Hunger Games.
Yes.
Like just hiding it out. Like you're like, and Rue's just like, like oh my God.
But like you don't expect it from her because she was the one that was always kind of very meek and quiet and appreciative.
She's like picking them off. They don't even see her. She's
I really loved that arc for her.
But you should do the ending of The Blood Right because you texted me when you were reading it, and so I know it's very near and dear to your heart.
Okay. Before I do that, I need to say something. I grew up with stories made by people like Joss Whedon, who did Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I don't know if you know of Buffy, but he also was a writer on several of the Marvel movies. All of that to say, and then the books that I read growing up too. All of that to say is the things I've loved and consumed, these authors, directors, writers, they take people from me.
Yeah.
They set it up and I know it's coming, but I pray that somehow it's not going to happen. But I lose a lot of people that I end up loving. And in Acosf, I was going through it because I had a feeling Reese was going to die. And then I got really upset and I physically cried. But then I was almost mad that he came back because he came back literally 30 seconds after I started crying.
It was a little,
and so it was a roller coaster of like, why did you do that to me? And then it happened again in this book. Yeah. So before I continue, I feel like I'm figuring her out, that she takes you to the point where you think it's going to happen. And then it kind of happens. But then she goes, just kidding. I have a fix for that. And while I'm happy that there's a fix, I'm starting to feel like, but that's not real. I know it's a fantasy book, but I'm like, but that's not realistic because then there's no stakes. Do you know what I mean? Like if everybody always has this happy ending, and everybody always makes it, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
You need to read more of her books.
Yeah. Oh, so she's just setting me up to let me down. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. That's what she's doing. Like she's giving you that false sense of hope, like it's gonna always work out. Yeah. But later on, guess what? I'm killing all of them. It's kind of like, and spoiler, it's kind of like when J.K. Rowling kills Hedwig. Why did you do that? All the characters.
It's very unnecessary.
Anyway, so our three girls, they make it till almost, they have to wait till like sundown on that last day. They make it. They're at the base of the mountain. They're trying to make their way up the mountain. They see that there's these guys. One of them is Bellius, I think his name is. And he is Emery's cousin. Mm-hmm. And he is after them. And they're making it up the mountain. They're like, oh my God, we're actually going to do this together. But then she's carrying Gwen, I think, at this point because she sprained her ankle. Mm-hmm. And something happens with Nesta and they end up falling down the mountain all the way. And so Nesta gets it in her head. She's like, you know what? You two are going to make it. but we can't all make it. Somebody's got to stay, and they've got to fight these guys.
Someone's got to fight them off.
And so, they want to fight with her, and Gwen is like, absolutely not. And Nesta does this move where she like knocks her out. She's like, I'm real sorry. And Emery's like, she's going to be pissed about that. So Emery takes her up the mountain, and Nesta stays there to fight. And we learn that Bellius, he is under control of Brialyn, and like that she was controlling the Illyrian soldiers to get those girls into that rite because she had a plan of having them all there. And then like that moment I thought was cool because they keep talking about Brialyn, but I think I have a question too about like this villain. I didn't feel like she was given enough airtime. Where like, what is this woman's story? Like she was just always in the background.
She just got to get rid of Nesta.
Yeah, and she wants to get rid of Nesta because she knows Nesta can get all the items, and she wants the items from her. And like, even though they've locked them up, Nesta can call them. And so, as Bellius is about to kill Nesta, somebody slits his throat or something, and it's Cassian. And fuck, man. He's under Brialyn's spell too. Because while this blood rite was happening, and he goes to Rhysand and he's like, I've got to get her. And they're like, you can't. We actually need you to find Eris and save him. And he's like, Eris, of all these people, you want me to save him? And in the process of trying to get him, we don't know if he is aligned with Brialyn, if she's taken over his mind. Turns out she did take over his mind, which I was worried. I'm like, God damn, he fooled us. He's actually a bad guy. And Asriel's able to take Eris and fly them away, and Cassian cannot. She's got like a spell on him, and she takes Cass. And this is the point where I was texting you, and I was like, Cass is going to die. I just know it. Either one of them is going to die, and I am not okay with this. And so he's spelled, whatever, it's like the Imperious Curse, and he has to kill Nesta.
Yeah.
And Nesta can see in his eyes he's kind of fighting it, and Brialyn, whatever her name is, she shows up and she's like, yeah, this is like, you either like give me the trove or he's gonna kill you or you're gonna kill him, and like you can't win. And I'm thinking in this moment, because Cassian is fighting it, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, she's gonna have to kill him. And that's what he like gets it out and says it to her. He's like, you have to do this. You have to kill me. And I was just like, I can't take this. And somehow Nesta calls all three of those things to her, and she is so like, she knows that she's going to kill Cassian. And in that moment, that power and that grief and that anger, I imagine it like light, like it just explodes all around her, all these silver flames. And she is able to kill Brialyn by like eviscerating her. She just like goes into dust. Like she just like that. And then you think that like she's killed Cassian, but it turns out he's fine. Like she knows that she had hurt him, but somehow he's fine.
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm happy, I'm relieved, but I didn't like what was done to me.
See, my thing is, when I went into that scene, and mind you, this is just like, also, I grew up with the like Hunger Games divergent dystopian trend, and when you first realize he's under that spell, it is the scene for me, and this is very vivid because I recently watched this movie where Divergent 4 is, they've got him under it, and he's got Triss. And she turns the gun, and she was like, it's me. And I thought they were going to have that connection because they're mates, and she was just going to like pull him out of it. So the way it went down was not what I was expecting. I was like waiting for her to like pull him out of it, and then they were going to turn on Brielle, whatever. And I was like, but yeah, I
was fully expecting like she's gonna have to kill him, and I'm like, and all the work that we've done with Nesta is gonna be. That's what I was thinking. Like, how is she gonna get over this one? But it turns out that she saves the day, and Emery and Gwen, they get immediately transported when they win. And so suddenly Azrael shows up and they're like, oh, like we're good. And he's like, yeah, no, it's Feyre. So it's like, I just got over this roller coaster of worrying about one of them dying. And now I'm like, oh, I forgot all about Feyre. Yep. And that there's no cure for this.
And that's the thing. The whole time, Rhysand's been trying to figure it out. Yeah. And there's nothing. There's nothing they can do.
Yeah, and the baby wasn't expected for another 2 months. And so they get to Feyre's house, and she's basically bleeding to death.
Yeah, and they've got their healer is it in? Maja? It's like, nah, this is not sounding right. Yeah, so she's there, and like, this is another thing, like, you guys are very advanced, and of course, it's like always healers, and I'm just like, really? Y'all don't have magic? Something to just be like, boop.
Yeah,
like
that. Magic.
Exactly.
Really?
Exactly. It's like the fact that they don't have therapists. It's just,
yeah.
This one for me, I was like,
we were able to bring Feyre back to life. We were able to bring Rhysand back to life.
Nesta can call on these random objects. She can have an army of the dead. We can do this. We can do that. Rhysand can like look at an army, snap his fingers, and they just poof into dust. Yeah. But we can't
change her bits and pieces.
We can't just like.
Yeah, I don't understand that. So she's bleeding to death, and like she's white as a ghost, and and Rhysand is gonna die too because they have this tether to each other,
which I hate. Is so stupid.
If one dies, the other one dies. It's like super. Everybody's crying and emotional, and Nesta is just like, "Oh wait, I have this time harp thing," and so Feyre's about to die, so she plucks the string. Basically, I'm thinking just to tell Feyre, like, so she has time to tell her, like, I'm really sorry and I love you, and it's like the first time she's ever said that. And in that moment, Nesta really breaks down and she's crying, and she's basically saying to the cauldron, which actually, I don't even know if it was the cauldron. She's saying something because through the whole book, she's constantly hearing like a woman's voice giving her instructions. You need to do this, or you should do that. She doesn't always follow it, but there's this woman's voice that's constantly talking to her. And she talks to that woman and she says, I will give it all back.
Yeah.
Take it all back if you could just find a way to save her and my nephew and Rhysand, like, take it all back. And this voice is like, you don't want, basically, like, even like the voices, like, you're going to still have your voices. And Nessa's like, I'll take the voices. Like, I have to go through that. I have to feel. You're like, are you sure you want to feel? She's like, yes, I have to. And they're like, okay. And then I imagine this light again. And, the voice is basically saying like, okay. But then she feels this tug as if not everything was taken from her, but there's like something that remains. And of course, magic. Feyre stops bleeding.
They've like she stops bleeding, and like they basically just transformed Feyre's insides to be an Illyrian.
And suddenly this baby that was born 2 months early and was like too tiny is like full term size. He's got the hair and he's breathing and he's perfect, and everyone is super happy.
Yeah. And we don't know exactly what all Nesta lost and what she still has.
But we do get a sense that she's got something still.
And I think this is really interesting because then we go to Nesta and Cassian, and like she's gotten to the point where she's accepted that they're mates.
Yeah.
And this is a big talking point for people on social media, is because I think it's towards the end they're having this conversation. Is it after the birth? And it has to do with like, okay, so remember when they're mates, like, accept food? Like, there's something weird that Nesta doesn't. Like, Nesta actually never says I love you to Cassian. Like, he says it, and then there's this weird like small food thing that people picked up on, and they're like, wait a second, they never like did that.
They didn't, because she's got like these moldy crackers or something. And she was like, well, we could do this way. Yeah. Or like we can have like a big blowout celebration. Yeah. And he's like, okay, we'll just wait for that. And we'll declare it then.
And I don't know if it's because everyone like is like wants something like, okay, this can't be that perfect. But then also this is so like, this one was too much for me. When Nesta is like making this deal with the cauldron, did you like the part where she also thought ahead?
Yeah.
And had herself
Yeah.
redone. I don't even know how to describe it. Rearranged.
Yeah.
Figured out so she could birth an Illyrian child. And I was like, but I don't think you've said I love you to Cassian. And you're like, oh, let me just do this too, just in case. Which is so interesting to me because, like, yeah, obviously you don't want to be down the road again, but like Nesta's not like overly like maternal screaming. Like she's not necessarily the, if I had to put the Archeron sisters in order of who's gonna have the children, she's at the end.
Yeah.
It doesn't say I love you, but like does think ahead.
Yeah.
In that scene of emotion and all this stuff, you were like, actually, this might be a good idea. Just like,
so yeah, save her, but also just in case.
Oh yeah,
just in case I'm sleeping with a dude with wings.
So maybe hit me up with that.
Yeah,
plastic surgery too.
That was a fun little add-on.
So I don't know. It was interesting.
Yeah. So the book doesn't end with them getting married, but they're getting ready for it. And she talks about how like Rhysand will pay for it. Like he's come around now. He doesn't mind her because she sacrificed everything for his love.
And everyone, I think, like the anticipation of book 6 after, like everyone is very theories, and maybe we'll do one on the theories, but like that is a topic of discussion. Is like are Nesta and Cassian, is this going to implode? Because she hasn't said I love you. You know, people like go into like all the nitty gritties, or like, is this going to be okay? That's an interesting one that people are like, is this actually going to happen?
I don't know. I think it will.
I hope so.
I think they'll have an okay. I think it'll work out for them. I think they're very much like each other. Yeah, I want to know more about Moore. I want to know more about
Moore is also Eris. A really hot topic of like
what is going on with Eris. I really think that Elaine clearly has the hots for Azriel, and I think Azriel has the hots for her. I'm not sure how that works when she's mated to someone else, but I think Lucien has accepted that it ain't happening.
And Sarah has teased, I believe, that there's betrayal in the next book. I think that's like the big teaser she's thrown out there.
Betrayal.
Yeah. So people worry about that.
I wonder if it's more.
That's what a lot of people think.
Because remember, I told you at the end of the Winter Solstice one, Frost and Starlight, she sees something really dark. And then I think they mentioned it a couple times in this book, or Cass does, that he sees something and Moore was like, something is going on, but she will not even give him a crumb.
Morgan, and I'm not going to give you all of it, Morgan in translation, some language the people on TikTok know, is synonymous with another name that she uses in a different series.
Oh.
And that is not a good person.
Oh, okay.
In that series.
Wow, so heartbreaking.
So people are really, Moore is like, everyone's very suspicious of her because they figured out this weird name connection.
That would be fun if it's true.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So
not that I want her to betray, but it would be fun.
I also am curious what you think about the TV adaptation that they want to do.
Well, they canceled it.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
I am too.
I don't know if I want you to bring this to my screen.
Well, but not on Hulu. Hulu is owned by Disney. I can't imagine they would do it justice. If there were to be one, maybe HBO Max.
I feel like if you could do, and I didn't read Game of Thrones. I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't read Game of Thrones, so I can't compare like that. But like, I don't want to be disappointed.
I know.
I don't want to be disappointed. I don't want to be upset with it. So part of me is like, oh, maybe just don't. Maybe just let me sit with these books and like, don't. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm nervous. Also, I love that you have the date of when this was released because I am shook.
Yeah.
I did not know it was 2021.
Yes. But also, like, if you look, the first book was 2015. And then Mist and Fury was 2016. Then Wings and Ruin 2017.
And they were all in May.
Frost and Starlight 2018. And then this one took a while, a couple more years, 2021. And here we are, 2025, with no book 6. But as I was looking into it, I mean, she is writing all these other books for these other series.
City is,
So I understand that she's busy, but damn.
Yeah.
It's been 4 years. It's been 4 years. And I would really like at least a whisper of what the next book is. I would love a title. But I guess it doesn't exist. Either if it does, maybe it's just like really tight-lipped.
I don't know.
But it's just interesting to see that they were coming out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then now nothing. So I don't know, guys. I don't know. I mean, it's coming.
Yeah.
We just have no idea when.
And I forget what Crescent City is going to end up. She's hinted at how long that series is going to be. But Crescent City got their last release sooner. So, like, if she's alternating, it's time for this one.
Yeah.
So I doubt she's working on another Crescent City. I don't know. I haven't read Crescent City. I still need to, like, get to that series and whatnot. But Throne of Glass is done. So, like, she's not touching that.
So then she has time.
Yeah.
Please. I need to know what's going on next. Oh, and we didn't even touch upon, like, one of the other bad guys working with Briallen was this Koshai. Sorry, dudes.
I forgot about him.
But he's like a looming threat of some entity type thing where, isn't he the one that imprisoned?
Yes.
What's her face? Vasa?
Yeah, the bird.
Yeah, and so he was trying to use Briallen to get these trove items because that's what's going to take him out from where he's imprisoned. But I don't know. I guess he's going to be coming back in some capacity because this didn't work out. I can't imagine he's just going to go quietly.
No, I think for me, I feel like book 6, he is obviously we have the plot and what's going on with these characters, but I feel like in book 6, it's going to continue on with that.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yes. So, I mean, that was a lot.
I know. I don't even want to look at how much time it is. Thankfully, my eyesight's bad, so I can't see how much time is on that.
1 hour and 11 minutes. Actually, that's not too bad considering what we've done before.
Yeah, and the fact that this book
it's a really big book. I hope
700 and some pages.
I hope we did it justice. I really will say, I know Mist and Fury was my favorite, but I think this one, if not tops it, is tied. I'm going to make a declaration right now. This was my favorite book.
Yeah, a lot of people, it's up there. And I honestly don't know if I were to rank it. And I think if I cranked them all out at the same time, like figuring it out.
Mm-hmm. I just really loved her journey. I loved how strong and independent she was. I loved that even though she was pretty cranky and nasty, you were rooting for her. I think Sarah J. Maas did a great job with Nesta. I really, really loved it.
I need Azriel to get some justice in this next book.
Yeah.
I need an Azriel book because I love Cassian, but I don't like men with long hair. I need Azriel.
God. Every time they mentioned, and I was like, ooh, I just kind of gloss over that because that's not how I see him in my head.
And I need Elaine to get no offense, Elaine. I need you to have a backbone in the next book. I need you to have a bigger voice.
She had a little bit of a backbone in this book where she argued with Nesta and was basically like, listen, you can't blame me or like use me as an excuse that you're scared of everything. Like, please.
Yeah, I need her to buck up.
Yeah, for sure.
But we'll see.
We will see. I guess that's all for today because that was a lot of yapping. Tell us what your thoughts were on this book. Is this your favorite? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you a Nesta fan now? Do you think she will implode with Cassian or will they ride off into the sunset?
We'll see. What are your theories?
Yes, let us know. And come back next time. I think we're going to do Verity next.
I think so.
Okay. Happy reading.